1.75 seconds. That is how much Emma Wyatt lost by in the 2022 500-yard freestyle in the national championship. She lost to somebody who is not actually born a female, Leah Thomas. Today, we will talk about the physical aspects, mental aspects, and the ethical aspects of transgender women competing in women's sports. Now, while the other side may say that inclusion is very important, it is. But before puberty, males and females are genetically pretty much the same, with like hormones and things like that. So it's not that big of a deal when they are children. But when after puberty and testosterone kicks in, it creates a pretty big deal, as we can see here. So the physical aspects, strength is a very big thing. Some of the events that people have had a lot of concern about with this is bodybuilding, track, and swimming, all which need strength and speed. We can see that in puberty, testosterone in men goes up 20-fold, and women it doesn't really change quite as much. We would need special medicine in order to make sure that this doesn't happen. As we look at the mental aspects, we can see that women's mental health generally isn't quite as good as men's mental health. They're at a higher risk to develop things like anxiety and depression naturally. This is important because if the athletes do not make the transition until after puberty and closer to their years of 20 years old, they will not have developed these things the same as athletes that are born women will. This could create hostility within the sport between athletes, not only transgender and cisgender women, but between each in their own. This can be very draining on the athletes and could affect their performances as well. Finally, let's look at the ethical aspects of this. We can see that it isn't really quite fair if the athletes do not make the transition into their late years of puberty, simply because of things like bone structure, shoulder width, skeletal structure, and things like that. It also creates a divider between men and women in sports. Not only does it create a divider, but we also don't know where the line is anymore. If it's okay if we can put transgender men in softball, or transgender men in men's sports, or transgender women, say, in softball or things like that. If we don't do that at AL and we wouldn't think it's fair for our athletes, why would we expect it anywhere else? And then finally, there are many sports like boxing, wrestling, rowing, and bodybuilding that go based off of weight class. This is an area where we might think, okay, the division between the groups is very important. Or, for example, something that might not have as much of a difference, but like wheelchair basketball versus normal basketball. The skill levels are just different, so why would we accept that? Today, we have covered the physical aspects of transgender women competing in women's sports, the mental aspects, and the ethical aspects. Thank you.